你好，下午好，好久不见，怎么样？你怎么样? Anyway, nice to see y'all again. It's Turtle Sage here. You know what the deal is. Time for another combat commentary. And in today's episode of Combat Commentaries, we are going to talk about one's weapon of choice. Now, we already had the one about guns, but to piggyback off of that, I think it pertinent to really examine the world of weapons and the martial arts and weapons in general. Weapons are as old as humanity itself. It is how we survived this savage ghetto of a planet known as Earth. You know, somebody eventually had the bright idea to, go upside someone's head with a rock. For my Bible thumpers out there, I believe that was Cain and Abel. Eventually, somebody had the bright idea to sharpen said rock, and wrap it in a bunch of animal skins. They had a knife. Did that again with a longer stick. They had an axe. Did that again with an even longer stick. They had a spear. Well, eventually, when civilization got to the point, they found harder rocks, i.e. metals, and basically gave us the first swords. And the prototype for me was put into play. So many heroes, from Musashi to, I don't know, Lee Mubai, Yasuke, the Alexander Dumas. Yeah, as you tell, if you didn't guess, I'm a big fan of bladed weapons, and that's the point. You got to pick a weapon that really is kind of an extension of you. But at the same time, I do have the philosophy: one mind, all weapons. You should have a working knowledge of every weapon that exists in your particular art and beyond. Oh yeah, don't just stop. If you do karate, don't just stop with the nunchucks or the bow staff or the tonfa or the sai or whatever. Go even beyond. Me, there is no limit. But I will admit there are. Well, we'll start with 5. These are my top 5 weapons that I, as a martial artist, am partial to. Number 5, I would say the Kusuri Fundo. Now, why the Kusuri Fundo? I'll tell you why. It is a weapon that is easily concealable. So if I'm out, goofing off, if I'm in my civilian attire, if I'm in an airport, for example, try to get comfortable. Ignore that. If you're trying to, if I'm in an airport, right, for example, or a place where they don't allow guns, if you're a civilian, if you're not a Fed, basically, then Kusuri Fundo works. I have a rope version, and it's not detectable by metal detectors, so it's good when you just need to have a weapon on hand. And I don't like chain weapons, but out of all the chain weapons in the martial arts universe, it does everything that it needs to do the best, in my opinion. You can, whack people with one of the weighted ends. You can grapple with it. You can tie people up with. You can bind them with it. All of the above. You can do what you need to do to stay alive. So I recommend, for me personally, I think that's a good weapon for really anyone. So Kusuri Fundo, number 5. Number 4, the standard Glock 17. Yeah, we gotta go right to the guns. Why is that? Okay, it's easy to learn, easy to maintain. There is no safety on it. There's always a bullet. If you're smart, you keep a bullet in the chamber so you can actually hold 18 rounds. And it's a good, solid standard weapon. You can get a smaller version of that, the Glock 43. Again, Glock, such a good weapon. Gen 4, you can easily strip it down, clean it if you need to. I recommend that. Semi-automatic. So, bam, bam, bam. Thank you, ma'am. Anyway, moving on. Number 3. I have fallen in love with the karambit, the curved hook knife, usually found in martial arts of Southeast Asia, i.e. Salat. I think the Philippines uses it in Kali. Again, brilliant weapon. Brilliant weapon. Hook knife, easily concealable. Granted, you can't bring it on planes with you. You can't take it into a federal building. I wouldn't recommend doing that anyway. I am not endorsing that, but still, it's the right length. So if you get into it with somebody, a life-threatening situation, and you have to, handle your business, you can not catch a case as easily because it's shorter than 4 inches. So check the law on that. And if, depending on what martial art you can do, it's very versatile with any martial art that happens to be very circular and close quarters. I.e., if you do Salat or Kali, very good. But I realize this, if you've seen the videos, you can do Tai Chi with it. You can do Wing Chun with it. You can do ninjutsu. Any grappling art, you can use karambit with it. So, again, big fan of the karambit. Okay, moving on. The Jian. Now, this isn't a weapon that I necessarily carry on my person, but here's why the Jian is such a good weapon to learn. Number one, if you do an internal art, it's pretty much revolves around that way. That's a signature weapon. You have to learn Jian eventually. So if you do Tai Chi Chuan, if you do Bagua, if you do Lu He Bafa, I think Xing Yi. I haven't seen Xing Yi's variant yet. I'll look it up on YouTube later. I do that anyway. But yeah, because of the way you got to employ the soft touch. You got to flow with it. You got to have flexibility. So it forces you to be better. Because it is such a difficult weapon. It is arguably one of the most difficult weapons to master. Because just because of the nature of you can't be hack and slash with it and hope to be effective. You've got to be calm, poised, and precise. It's a bloodletting weapon, so you got to nick the vital areas like the wrists, the throat, inner thigh, all of that stuff you normally see. So you're not going to get a deep cut like you would with a katana or a dao, right? So it requires more out of you. And because it requires more out of you, it will inevitably make whatever art you do that much better. Okay, I do Tai Chi, for example. Because I'm doing that, I've developed greater control with my Dantian. What is a Dantian for the noobs out there? The Dantian is basically your lower abdomen. And it's where the greatest amount of your life force is stored, your chi, whatever, right? So you have to have greater control over it. You have to have relaxed shoulders. And one of the problems I have as a martial artist, trying to do an internal martial art, is I have these man shoulders, right? Looks good for the ladies, intimidates bad guys, but it is horrid. Absolutely trash. Kind of a huge hindrance when you're trying to be elegant, I excel at weapons like spear or the Dao or Guandao. Basically, manly weapons. Weapons that require muscle. I have a natural inclination for those types of weapons. It is what it is. And you got to keep that in mind when learning different weapons. What weapons suit your body type, your archetype, your personality? Uh, you got to keep all of that in mind. So moving on, the number one weapon that I like to use, that I would like to master, the Hanbo, the walking stick. Why is that? Why am I so fascinated by that weapon? Well, I'll tell you why. I'm not getting any younger. Again, if you've seen, for my Uber nerds out there, if you watch a movie called Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf the Grey or Gandalf the White, played by Sir Ian McKellen, carries a longer stick because he's a wizard. And one of I think he's at a bar or something, and they tell him like, no, you can't have no weapons. And he's like, you begrudge an old man his walking stick. So if you're an old man, you're walking with your walking stick. If it's a Hanbo is used by every old martial arts master archetype you've ever seen. Yoda, Master Splinter. Even technically Zatoichi, although it's a cane sword, but you get the idea, same thing. You can still use it as a weapon. You can grapple with it, whack people upside the head. It is Japan's answer to Kali Eskrima, stick from Daredevil. So, yeah, I love that weapon. I love what you can do with it. If you're in law enforcement, that is a weapon you should learn. Because you might have to nightstick something. Oh, it's basically the nightstick. So again, that's my weapon. Right amount of finesse, right amount of force, easy to learn, and yet not as easy to master as you might think. You still got to have things in there, like you got to be flexible, you got to be somewhat agile, although not really, but it helps. So those are my top 5 weapons. And so I say this to say, you got to keep in mind, like, if you're built like famous wushu champion Jeju, it probably doesn't pay to go into battle carrying a Guandao or a wolf tooth mace or a monk spade. Probably not. Heavy weapons aren't good for someone like her. Although when she breaks out that straight sword or a fan, I'm gonna get nervous. I'm gonna get real nervous. Like, oh, she's got speed and agility, flexibility, way more than I do. So I'm like, okay, she might cut me up, might do all of that, right? But if I have a katana, someone like me, not necessarily super huge, like I'm 5'8", 5'9", shoes on, so and I'm kind of bulky, I hit the gym, chest, all that shit. I look like a man, right? So close to mid-range weapons, and I want to get the job done quickly because I'm not particularly fast. So one-hitter quitters. The Dao, any kind of short to mid stick. Katana, I excel with those weapons. Granted, and that's kind of like my personality. My friend, Facebook friend, y'all know him as Morpheus Jackson, aka Will F. Hunter. Shout out to him. He's always saying, "Oh, you need to get into Hung Gar." I'm like, yeah, probably should, but it is what it is. I am where I am. This is my karma. So single edge slicing weapons are kind of a go-to for me. Hence, even when I get close, the karambit, it fits my personality. Cut them, get it done, move on. Hanbo, whack them, make them submit, get it done. Don't do anything spectacular. The Jin just makes my Tai Chi better. That's the only reason I like it. Otherwise, it's more it's not so much a weapon. It's more of a training tool. But I digress. So you got to keep that in mind. Like if you're built like the Hulk, if you can use the Jin, more power to you. But hey, get a mace, get a battle axe. Viking. It's like that's one thing I will say about the Viking people, the Nordic folks. They're good at one thing: fighting and making weapons because they knew how to get rid of the impurities. But either way. So, with that said, learn. It comes back to Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Know your environment, know your enemy, and know yourself. You fight 1,000 battles, you'll never be in danger once. So, with that said, go in peace. Train hard, my friends and family. Marshall family, that is. Be water. And with that, if you like what you saw, like, share, and subscribe. Turtle Sage signing off for another fun-filled episode of Combat Commentary.